Today's video is going to be a bit of a special one because I'm taking you along on my first ever big day out, and we are exploring El Paso County in Colorado. And trust me when I say we cover El Paso from border to border. From sunrise to sunset, it's a race to see how many species we can see. And along the way, we hit as many locations as we can. Some are popular ones, some are sort of off the beaten path. And we try to hit as many habitats as we can, from Pike National Forest in the mountains all the way out to the sprawling plains of eastern Colorado. Our target is 65 species, but I'm pretty sure we can get past that. So enjoy the video. Here's everything I saw on my first ever big day out. We all met up in Denver around 6:15 a.m. and then made our way down to our first stop in the Springs. We entered the Garden of the Gods right around 7:15 a.m. And we saw our first species of the day in the parking lot right as we got out of the car in this Woodhouse's scrub jay. And the Garden of the Gods is a difficult place to bird at, not because there aren't abundant species there to see, it's just that it's such a stunning place, it's very easy to get distracted by its beauty and some of its other residents. After taking in a small dose of the bighorn sheep, which I couldn't help myself, we then noticed that there were some prairie falcons way high up on the cliffs. It took all 400 millimeters of my lens to get some decent shots, but they were spectacular. We continued our walk through the Garden of the Gods and noticed a nice silhouetted Townsend solitaire up at the top of a tree. And then in what could be a candidate for spot of the day, we saw a great horned owl asleep up in one of the little rock caves high on top of the cliffs. And to round out our trip at Garden of the Gods, we did see some more of the common species like Canadian geese. We saw about 40 rock pigeons that were flying in between the cliffs, and then we also saw some black-billed magpies. We were there for less than an hour, but it was already a great start as we knocked off 11 species at our first stop. At about 8:30 a.m., we arrived at our second location, Bear Creek Park East. We were hopeful that this park would have a lot of common species like sparrows and some nuthatches that would really help us pad our stats for the day. And our hunch about this was correct. Right as we got to the park, we were able to see an American goldfinch, and then not long after that, a spotted towhee. We continued down the trail and we started hearing a pecking sound on wood. Figuring it was probably a downy woodpecker or maybe even a northern flicker, we were surprised to see that all that racket was coming from this little guy. Next up was sparrow time. We noticed ahead of us in the trees and also on the trail itself a nice mixture of them between white-crowned and song, and this white-crowned actually stood still long enough to give me a nice photo. As we wrapped up at Bear Creek Park East, we were able to spot 2 red-tailed hawks off in the distance out on telephone poles, and we were able to spot 2 mallards here in the creek, and in total we added 15 new species from this location for a total of 26 on the day. Our third stop of the day, which was very critical for our count, was at Gold Camp Road. It was our only stop of the day that was going to be up in the mountains, and it was the only chance where we could see a few key species like the Clark's nutcracker, Steller's jays, and a long shot hope for some red crossbills. As we walked up the road, it was pretty quiet on the bird front. Out of nowhere, our group leader David sprung into action. He started making calls that imitated the northern pygmy owl to see if it could get any response. And to my amazement, it actually worked. I couldn't believe it. Next thing you knew, we had a tree full of red-breasted nuthatches all swirling around. David's owl calls had really kicked the hive. Not only were we getting the red-breasted nuthatches that we needed, soon the mountain chickadees showed up as well. After the nuthatches and chickadees calmed down, someone in our group spotted something way off in the distance. We all looked with our binoculars, and then I looked with my camera, and sure enough, it was a lone red crossbill. This was 6 new species for this location, which brought our days total to 32. Stop number 4 was the Fountain Creek Nature Center, and we had a little bit of an ace up our sleeve. We had Jessica, one of our co-leaders of the trip. She is a supervisor there, so we had all the inside information, and the hope was that we could see swamp sparrows, a marsh wren, maybe even a Virginia rail, and we could also finally start knocking off a lot of the waterfowl species. We briefly stopped here on this bridge and played back a call of the Virginia rail. Didn't take long, we did hear the call back, but we were never able to physically see the Virginia rail, but we did hear a call back. And of course, being so close to the Air Force, we got this little bonus flyby overhead, which was pretty awesome. We knocked off a few more commons as we walked down the trail, also keeping an eye out for a recently seen Tennessee warbler, possibly even a yellow rumped warbler. As you can see here in this video and image, we were able to finally knock some waterfowl off the list. We saw some northern shovelers, some gadwalls, some pie-billed grebes, and even some American coots. But the highlight was in the middle here as we found this cinnamon teal sleeping. Our hunger and empty stomachs took over, so we turned around and headed back to the parking lot for lunch. But on the way, we had another spot of the day nominee of this bird way downstream on this sandbar that we thought for certain was an American dipper. But then we scoped in and noticed that it actually wasn't. Can you tell what it is just by the video and photo? If you guessed American pipit, then congratulations, you are correct. This stop gave us 10 new species, and it brought our total for the day up to 42. Stop number 5 was an impromptu stop, and a quick one at that, at Squirrel Creek Road Reservoir, and I use the word reservoir lightly, where waterfowl again was the name of the game, and we were able to add 8 new species here, bringing our total up to 50 for the day. Quite a contrast from the mountainous habitat we were just in a few hours earlier. We were now out on the eastern plains of Colorado for stop number 6, which was the Cane Ranch Open Space. At this stop, we were hoping to see curve-billed thrashers and maybe some horned larks, but I know something I was hoping that we wouldn't run into. We spotted this kestrel, which didn't make for good video or photos. As you can hear in the clip, the wind was really ripping out there, and it was unfortunately a red flag fire day, and we did see 2 different smoke plumes from fires. One was south of Fountain, and then the other one was the fire that started up near the Air Force Academy. I believe both got under control and didn't do too much damage. After getting some distant looks at some horned larks and also the western meadowlark, we decided to head back to the car because the wind wasn't really helping us out with birding either. And even though this location didn't give us the amount of species that we were hoping for, it did give us 3 new, so that brought our total up to 53. There are over 1,000 birds in this lake right here, right now in this video. Do you see them? Or how about in this video? Now can you see the dots a little bit better? Yeah, this is what we were working with. As I was scanning the lake, I did notice down at the far end a pair of nesting bald eagles, with one returning back to the tree right as I looked over there. This was the only location of the day where I started to get a little bit frustrated. My binoculars weren't seeing far enough, the lens I brought for my camera wasn't making good images, and I started to feel like I wasn't really contributing to the group. And you know what? That's okay. That's what these outings are for. I went and put my camera back in the car and came back and turned into listening and learning Scott. It's okay if photographer Scott takes a 30-minute break. Fortunately, both leaders of our group brought decent scopes, so they were scanning around and calling out all of the waterfowl that we had been missing for the day. Greater scaup, lesser scaup, buffleheads, golden eyes, redheads, everything was there, and our stats were starting to skyrocket. As we wrapped up here, we got word that a marsh wren had been seen at a park that was only a few minutes away. David was tallying up our totals as we packed up, and that's when we got the news that we had seen 17 new species here, which put us over our goal of 65. We were now sitting at 70, but we were not done yet. Cross Creek Regional Park was our play to try to see this marsh wren, but it was all for naught. We also scanned the lake and saw a lot of the same waterfowl that we had just seen at Big Johnson. There was nothing new to add there, but we did not leave here empty-handed. Sitting up on top of this tree was another new species for us today. This lesser goldfinch put our total now up to 71. With about 10 minutes of light left, we made one last Hail Mary attempt to see a Lewis's woodpecker hanging out on some of these telephone poles. We unfortunately didn't see it, but we decided to call it here and end the day at a whopping 71 species. All right, well, there you go. That was my first ever big day out. I hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, it was a blast. Sort of the way this whole thing kind of went, this was all put on by the DFO group, the Denver Field Ornithologist group, and they were doing this thing called the Front Range Frenzy. And so basically every Front Range county was doing a big day out, and it was sort of a friendly competition to see which county along the Front Range could see the most birds. All counties had the target of 65, and so far leading up to El Paso, nobody had actually hit the 65 yet. So we were the first county not only to hit 65, but then go to 71, which put us in the lead for El Paso. There is one more county still to go, which is happening tomorrow. There's Pueblo County, and they have got a lot of spots, so I would not be surprised to see Pueblo go above our 71 from El Paso. But we will see. I will post the result in the video here at the end once I know, and before I actually upload this to the channel, so you'll know if El Paso ends up winning or not. But yeah, it was a really, really, really fun experience, and one of the main reasons why I wanted to sign up for the El Paso Big Day Out was because that was a county that I've not really done a lot of like photography or birding in. So I was really interested to just go to some of these spots. I mean, obviously I've been to Garden of the Gods before, but never really there on a birding sort of like trip. So it was really cool to go there, not just because it's, so beautiful, but to also be like, oh, okay, now I've got to really focus in. We're here for birds. Oh, those bighorn sheep were awesome. I wasn't expecting them to be like right there. So that did distract me a little bit. But I kept telling myself, I'm like, we're here for birds, Scott. We're here for birds. But, and yeah, so just going around to all those different spots down in El Paso County that I've never really been to for birding. So, it was super cool. In the video, we had a few spot of the day nominees. And if you recall, the first one was seeing that great horned owl up at the top of the cliffs in that little cave. That was at Garden of the Gods. I don't know how Jessica was the one who spotted that. I don't know how she saw that, but that was a really good spot. And then the other nominee was at the Fountain Creek Nature Center. We were walking all along that creek, and we just thought for sure that we would see an American dipper along there at some point, but we never really did. And then all of a sudden, we spotted this, and we're like, "Oh, that must be a dipper, like way down there." And I was just like, "Man, how did you see that?" And then David, of course, put his scope on it and was like, "Oh, not an American dipper. That's actually a pipit." And it was like, "Oh, wow." So we never really did ever see an American dipper, but we did get that pipit, which I'm going to give the nod as the official spot of the day. At the end of the day, we were kind of all talking about what our all-star birds of the trip was, and I had 3 that kind of came to mind. First was the prairie falcons there at Garden of the Gods. I thought they were really awesome. And then my other nominee was, I think, the pipit that we saw there at Fountain Creek. And then my ultimate all-star of the trip, I am going to give to the red crossbill, which we saw at the very end of the stop up in the mountains. And even though I didn't really get a great photo or a great video of it, it was actually a lifer for me. So I had never seen a red crossbill before. So I'm going to go ahead and give that the all-star bird of the video, the red crossbill. So, but yeah, so I hope, again, that you enjoyed the video, and it was really fun putting this together. And it took me a lot of time to edit this one because there was just so many different stops and there were so many different things that we saw, and I wanted to make sure that I got what I thought were the best clips and some of my best photos from the day. Speaking of which, I shot all day with this guy. Again, this is the Tamron 50 to 400 millimeter lens, and I like bringing this out on like a bird outing because, we're on the move constantly, so it's kind of a pain to load up the big 200 to 600. Like, oh, hang on, I gotta go load that in the car. This is, just so compact, and I can just jump in the car with the camera with me and really not worry about it. And it still has, at 400 millimeters, still has enough reach that I can get the shots that I want. And yeah, it's great. So again, the Tamron 50 to 400 remains still my most slept on lens for wildlife photography. So if you are in the market or looking for a more compact lens that still has a lot of reach, that would be my recommendation for him. So anyways, thank you so much for watching the video again. And until next time, yeah, see you later. Bye.